is to let everyone know that a rate adjustment is based on additional allowable costs that are not in the current rate, and the burden of proof is on the provider to show proof of these costs. Okay, there we go. So the burden of proof is on the provider to show that the request is reasonable, necessary, and related to resident care. The adjustment is due to required program changes or true emergencies or circumstances that were not foreseeable at the time the current rate was set. And the rate adjustment meets the materiality guidelines in PNMI PNP issuance 14-2. Also, providers may not request a rate adjustment if the sole reason is the actual costs incurred exceed the rate of payment. So an overview on how to apply for a rate adjustment. To request a rate adjustment, the provider must complete PNMI PNP form 16-2F, which is at the link on this slide. And then I'll also walk through that form with you after this presentation. The form must be accompanied by all documents and proof determined necessary for the division to make an informed decision. Once the application filing received is deemed complete, the division will issue a decision within 30 days. Rate adjustments are granted at the discretion of the director in consultation with the PADS. So we have this additional required form for the family first rate adjustments. I'll also walk through this in more detail, but just to let you know that this is an additional form that will be required to go along with the original form, but I can walk through those now. Okay, so this form is the original one. This is the application for rate adjustment. This should always be submitted to the division whenever a program would like to request a rate adjustment. So with this, we have the provider's name needs to be put in here. Also describe the nature of this rate adjustment. It's good to put as much information as you can in there so we can understand what is being asked. What is the annual cost of this rate adjustment? This will be used to determine what the rate adjustment will end up being. Also, we ask, is the amount material pursuant to PNMI PNP issuance 14-2? So there's a PNP on that. We ask that you attach any work papers related to determining if the request is material. We also would like to know when the increase in costs are incurred. We would like to know, will this cost increase be permanent? The next section is explain why this rate adjustment is reasonable, necessary, and related to resident care. Per the rules, it has to be. So we would like an explanation of why the program believes that it meets this requirement. We also ask if the rate adjustment is the result of required program change, true emergency, or circumstances that were not foreseeable at the time the current rate was set. This is also a requirement within the rules. And again, we would like an explanation on why the program believes that they have met this criteria. So the next section is, are the spending increases due to changes in law or Vermont policies? And if the answer is yes, we would ask that you attach a copy of the relevant law, relevant statute, rule, regulation, order, and work papers that show the cost of compliance, the relevant base year cost, if any, and how the incremental costs have been calculated. Then we ask, does this request involve increasing in staffing costs? And again, if this is a yes, we ask that you provide staffing data comparing the staff full-time equivalents and annual salaries by position type for the base year in effect in the current period. And also this includes additional staff. We ask for the hire dates and then any backup documentation such as payroll register information. And then the next section is, was there a change in the number of licensed beds? And if the answer is yes, then we ask a few more questions on like, what was the change in the licensed bed? When was this change effective? And explain why this change would increase the average cost to care for the residents. And then the next section is it's a signature section. And just as a reminder to make sure it's signed when it's sent to us. If not, we'll have to send it back for signature and it won't be considered complete until then. So this is the original form that should always be submitted to us, but now we created an additional form. I just have to hold on one second. Okay, we created an additional form. It's a supplemental family first cover sheet to kind make it straightforward for the providers on what we would like to see. And then also it's easier for us to go through each one if it's laid out the same way. So this form is an additional form that should be provided along with the 16-2F application for rate adjustment form, which we just went through. So we should receive both for a Family First rate adjustment request. And it just reiterates that a rate adjustment is based on additional allowable costs that were included in your PNMI's fiscal year 2020 costs and reported on the state fiscal year 2022 funding application, which was used to set the current state fiscal year 2022 rate. And then below are categories of anticipated Family First related costs, which some of the costs may already be incorporated in your program. And then please only list new costs to be incurred by the program. So next we discuss that for each cost listed below, you must provide adequate documentation and proofs necessary for the division to make a decision. And additionally, again, if any costs below include changing in staffing, we ask you provide the following items, which is similar to the other form, which is staffing data comparing the staff full-time equivalents and annual salaries by position type for the base year in effect and the current period. And then again, for additional staff, include hire dates. We also like to see the current payroll register, and then the proposed staffing pattern with the new positions or changes. So next we get into this table and it breaks out by cost category. We ask that for every cost that is added here that you tell us the frequency of the cost, which could be annual or one time. We ask for the amount for each cost, the date the cost will start to be incurred, and also a yes or no to make sure the documentation is provided for each cost. So that way we can see the backup for that. So we have the cost categories separated. The first one is cost related to trauma-informed treatment model that is designed to address the needs of children with serious emotional behavior disorders, disturbances, including curriculum and staff training. So we ask that you list all the costs below in these three rows here, and to also please attach any additional sheets if necessary, if you're unable to fit it in these 3 rows. We ask that for all the cost categories. So the next one is facilitates participation of family members in the child's treatment program. Please list all costs below again and attach any additional sheets. We have accreditation. We have a section for clinical, nursing, and specialized programming. Again, if you need more room, just please attach additional sheet to this cover page. And then we have a here, so a total. And then the next section we have is below is the aftercare support costs. These costs are unallowable per the Division of Rate Settings rules. So please list the cost below, even though they will not be included in the rate adjustment. I know that's trying to be figured out right now on how that will be reimbursed, but as of now, it is not in the Division of Rate Settings rules, but we do ask that you break it out so we are aware of the costs here. And that is everything that I have. I don't know if anyone has questions or if Lindsay or anyone has anything to add.
Sure. This is Lindsay. Thank you, Jamie. I just want to add a couple of quick things. I'm not sure if everyone's familiar with the division's rules, but everything is on our website. So we're just highlighting now rate adjustments, but if you're not familiar with all the other provisions of rate setting, all the forms and the rules themselves are on the website. And everything just kind of, as Jamie explained, everything we do is very cost-based. So we're always comparing, the rates are determined based on historical costs. So whenever there's, in general, a rate adjustment application sent in, we are making sure that this is an incremental additional cost to those costs that were calculated in the rate. So that's how we're, kind of going about this. So any cost that's, I think it's recognized that some of the Family First costs may not actually be new costs. There may be some kind of reassignment of duties, but not necessarily new costs. So, if there's no new costs, then we don't expect to see that, on the supplemental form. Additionally, I think, in each break out where we have all the lines under each item on the supplemental form. You know, we what I'm sorry. When we see that, 35 is her guys again. For each line under each major subheading cost, we would like to see every, really a breakout of everything that you're assuming goes into that cost. We understand it. For example, mileage may be included separately under a bunch of these different second headings, and instead of just putting, mileage X dollars, we would like to, we like to see how you're arriving at that amount. If it's, how many miles or how you're getting insured or however the assumption are behind that maybe getting you to those numbers. So we're looking for that detail with every single line. Cost you're going to put on the sheet. And I know a lot of you, we in affiliated, we work with you regularly, so we are very available to suggest additional questions anytime to answer the questions and to help you specifically with rate ups and rate ups.
Hey, Lindsay, Jamie, and team, there was a question there by Anne, and I don't know if you want to unmute and ask it, or if you, there you go.
One of the things under COVID-19 last year, our census was greatly impacted along with our staffing. How is that going to be reflected in our state fiscal year 22 rate?
So basically, I mean, the rules are the rules, and I think the normal, there haven't been any rule changes made, so I think they will be reflected. And I mean, I say in as normal, but I think each program, case by case basis, but we only do what is allowed by the rules. So I think, if you want to talk specific kind of offline, happy to do that. With a lot of programs in different circumstances, but in general, we don't have anything else. The rules are rules, and we haven't, to do anything different would require a rule change.
Was there a rule? I'm a little bit out of the clinical because I'm on the financial side. For those that don't know me, were there any rule changes when we were capped and we couldn't move kids anywhere or take kids?
I mean, I don't think no. I mean, the rules just when I talk about rule changes, the rule changes are the rules, the legal rules that are on the website, and that entails it's basically a year-long process where it's a lengthy thing that we have to spend ahead for a long time, and there are a lot of different partners who get the budget, the different committees in the state that have to approve. So I think so have rule changes more of a general change of the rule, not kind of a program specific issue. I'm not sure if it's a program specific issue maybe, and so kind of reach out and afterwards. We're happy to talk about that. I'm not aware of each of the details, but yeah.
Thank you.
I think, Anne, to answer your question, I don't know that there was a rule change, but I think people were encouraged to submit for rate adjustments with the impacts of COVID. Correct me if I'm wrong. Am I seeing nods? Yes, Jim's nodding his head. I think that was the response from our state partners in terms of trying to how to help us through that situation. Okay, other questions for our rate setting team?
Oh, yeah. What I'm asking about is with my next year's rate, ours is based on my last year's census. It's not just mean for assistants during the year, it's future rates that I feel are going to be impacted by this. Correct. That's why I'm asking. I do appreciate that. They did those. There was a lot of assistance last year, definitely, and it was very much appreciated. I know at the retreat, I'm sure everywhere. Not just financial, but all the support given to us. Yeah. So that can never be understated or overstated. Overstated.
Jamie, maybe for our benefit, could you just speak a little bit to the process for requesting rule changes? Because I think, just to, not go down sort of Alice in Wonderland rabbit hole here, but, I think that there's been challenges with PNMI funding structure and program delivery for 20 years. And, I know that we, about a year ago, we're entering into, what we thought was going to be a collaborative process to address this finally, and recognizing that, people's resources have been spread thin and that those meetings just never, transpired. But I think that at some point, if we're really going to get to a place where programs can be sustainable and serve kids in the most efficient productive ways, we've got to tackle the elephant in the room, which is the rules are problematic. And I'm just curious if you could talk to us about what the process be like to undergo proposed rule changes.
Right. So I think we are really happy with kind of with the hearing about in aggregate sort of on the topic and then take it back to take our event. It's a lot of different components there in terms of feasibility, budget, and I guess a lot of different parties. So that's really kind of process. I think in the past several years ago when Emily, my professor was here, I think that's the first step. It's really to have a meeting and hear about what your thoughts and ideas are and then take that back from here. I think there's also in the past it's been to recommend bypassing to talk to legislators and such as the concerns because that's another avenue. If it's something that that would be helpful in that. And otherwise, I think first have to be to identify these issues and we can discuss them and we can bring them back and start with that.
So is the rules essentially any change to the rules would have to be covered in the legislative session? Is that what you mean?
No, not necessarily, but especially when there's fiscal impact and there's not enough money allocated for some of these, then that's something that it's more fiscal impact. Sure. Then it'll impact. I think a lot of these in the past, a lot of the suggestions and that's kind of where they died is lack of budget, and so that's what I was suggesting. But in terms of ordinary rule changes, no. I mean, assuming there's budget, assuming there's will, and we can let ourselves at least engage in is changes.
Okay. All right, so maybe Lindsay and Jane and Drew then, maybe we can, after the fact, we can reach out to you and schedule a meeting between now and our next board meeting, because we have a small group of board members assembled who have some interesting experience in this. So maybe those are a way to start this conversation and see if we can't move some needles. And in terms of legislative impact, I'm certainly happy to speak to a few legislators if I'm clear about what I'm asking them to consider, whether it's simply budgetary impact or if there's actual governance and rules that need to be modified. So we can talk more about that, but that sounds good. Other questions specific to families first?
I just want to say hi, thanks. So my question is about the 6 months of aftercare that's required, and it would be sort of a projected cost, not something that we've incurred to date. And how would that relate to this process of filling out of the form? I'm not sure if we're able to fill out based on something we're going to be doing soon.
So it will basically state that the rate adjustment is effective from the later of when costs are incurred or state the first number of issue. So we encourage you, and it's correct. So basically, if I were to, unfortunately, we'll have to go back first. So we do encourage you to that and if everyone starts with you can rate incur. But we do encourage you to get these applications in, as soon as you are aware of what it's going to be, and so you give us right kind of way in the class.
Thanks, Lindsay.
And is it specific about aftercare or in general?
That was about aftercare. I think it's general. Relatively, do I know if people have identified what the specific expectations were for 6 months of aftercare? That's not to say this rate discussion, but I know people were chatting related to that.
I'm going to actually defer to our RLSA folks because they've been handling this sort of integration of what the federal bullets are. So, Chris, actually, do you have any further clarification? I know a couple about this, but do you have any further clarification in terms of the aftercare criteria?
No, it's fine, Dave. So definitely also have to share if we jump in, and that's what I'm saying. I think some important components that we know are that the federal legislation requires 6 months of post-discharge family-based aftercare. So important to note that we're talking about when youth discharge from your programs and go to a family setting, such as their own birth family or an adopted family or a foster family. Also, if a youth ages out and goes to independent living, even though that's sort of family of one, that's considered a family setting. The important distinction is if a youth discharges from your program and goes to another residential treatment program, you're a step family would not be required to provide the aftercare services because they're already in another program. We're asking in face ambiguities out there is for programs to, not that you individually, for programs to take a look back and assess the types of youth they've had in programs and think about what type of aftercare support these youth should be getting in terms of if there's something that was covered by the rate settings, for example, and you're able to afford the types of after the appropriate for these youth being eligible to some youth program without well and not hold after support, and some youth programs in a more vulnerable state and they need after support. So if you buy a continuum of payback that you would think would be appropriate for the youth program from on the moment continuum, very low support, check bump also where some youth programs in rough state would be on higher full services, including ongoing support from sport, this that kind of thing. I think either end will be doing female also more middle. So it's tolerable rather than sort of think about the youth had program, but pace after sports you think they would need need, and to make a best estimate in terms of the average in terms of cost that you would require to provide for after services in the youth program or family setting.
So the question, I guess, is what if the youth going into an ODA or a CA could be in half service, that's something you worked on prior to discharge, what's needed? And then as a program trying to look at costs is the assumption that every youth that discharge more services. You're trying to apply rating. This is really difficult because you need to put applications in prior to having these costs occur. You don't have answers yet. So is there basically a date where we have final answers that we're working towards so that we can actually submit applications with accurate costs? One. And then two, it's being able to adjust those applications and know where patterns we're not getting required so we need to submit.
No, maybe that's the most that's a continuum of after support. You're right, so you think your program needs lots of services on how to meet your program services. And scenarios where that's not going to be continually that youth trying to inform their life and in face of their life. So I think that what we're asking is to not that someone needs lots of services, someone needs very few services, and sort of the estimating average in that would be typical average for the sake of the annual program or for example. When you also about police program goes to their ITA, and maybe that's somewhere you to this component. The federal legislation says that the rest of the QRTP requires the treatment program services. However, we're looking at more broad interpretation of that in terms of the program, your programs be ensuring that the youth are receiving the appropriate services. That would be more of a provider kind of model where your case managers or clinicians are checking in with case managers and or clinicians at a DA, for example, to ensure that the youth is receiving the appropriate services. But can you speak to that at all? I'm clear on whether that's has been a final decision or not that you move in that direction. I'm calling, not sure.
She's still here, it says.
You're muted.
Well, having said that, I totally understand the frustration and the lack of clarity in these things and trying to give a solid, precise estimate of what the cost will be. And we don't really have clarity on what exactly it is that we're asking. So I'm acknowledging that, but what we're asking for is, I think, the best estimate. Sorry, the best estimate on terms of how much it costs on average for these that typically come to your programs and then not typically discharge from your programs. Beth, for you 1 second ago, when I was asking if you could jump in and talk about the aftercare support and whether we're going to be able to move forward with the model that is not so much the program directly providing aftercare support, but rather ensuring that aftercare support is happening and more provider to provider.
I wasn't Chris, right? I'm having a medical emergency going on with one of my babies are on the way for a few minutes. But yeah, no, we absolutely what we talked about is creating a more comprehensive rate for programs that might be better situated to provide the aftercare themselves, and figuring out a process for smaller programs where that's simply not as feasible to be able to partner with another contracted provider. And partner meaning there would be some kind of established agreement. I may work out the details of that yet, but essentially there would be kind of a minimal requirement on the treatment program. Bulk of the work would happen. So you, as the treatment program provider, you would essentially get credit for the aftercare, but you wouldn't necessarily be providing it. You would be involved to ensure that the services match what the treatment needs are. So I think more come, and I'm happy to have a further conversation offline with anyone who might have suggestions around how that would work effectively. We've tossed around some different ideas, but this is really been a collective effort. I think with myself, with folks from RLSI and BCI and services, folks to try to be as creative as possible at understanding the size of our population, the size of our state, that all of those really impact our ability to meet some of those requirements in more of a traditional sense. So hopefully that makes sense to folks.
We also have conversations about what happens when we have families who are unwilling or unable to seek the aftercare, and how service providers, what their responsibility is, and how they'll manage their responsibility. Because it's one thing to say we'll oversee or we'll check this stuff. It's another thing practical effort of we're supposed to see the therapist, the therapist not seeing them, or on business, or they're supposed to go to parent class. There's a lot of things that could happen, and what is our liability or responsibility for that whole 6 months?
Yeah. Well, I encourage to think about it in the same way of, for those, children or youth that are currently in the program, there are occasions where, kids and their families just refuse to engage, right? Like it's rare, but it happens. And the reasons behind that are, vary, but, that doesn't seem to me to be the fault of, of the program. That seems kind of silly to me. So I think that we would figure that out. And I think it's a great question so that we can provide to you all very clearly around, okay, so if for free of time, say family engages in the first 2 months and then kind of lost out of sight, or fails to engage after, you're still responsible to follow them for the whole 6 months following their discharge. So we have some clarity around that. I think it's a great question. I also just see that as well in the program.
Just to clarify, and I might have when I was talking to Victoria a little bit more in general items, but for aftercare, those costs are not going to generate. So I know we're waiting on, and that's at the bottom of the form. I know we're waiting on, the Indian work on exactly how it will be reimbursed. It will not be in generic, so you will not submit rate adjustment for aftercare costs. So any of these questions with respect to, rate adjustment, it's not with aftercare, it's not, going to issue because it won't be reimbursed. We just ask to identify the cost of that, because when we do see your claim application, if there are aftercare costs that are reimbursed for outside of the general rate, then we will take those out of the cost calculation and offset the cost for the rate claim application on which they're awarded. So I hope that clarified that, just the rest of that email.
I did a question that I think that opens a lot of questions, but how is this going to be tracked, and or what are our programs going to be responsible for tracking or providing to the state or as the team to kind of all these different pieces again first that discussed?
Again, I can chime in just one line for sure. Certainly, like others, from the business office or and not speaking to that. But we're working on the process right now to figure out what needs to be submitted, how we will track that, what that will look like, who will that sit with internally to ensure that there's we can report back to federal partners around QRTP, ongoing compliance or further maybe some of the extended evaluations as well. So I think that's we're happy to share that. We're tracking all the time. We're in that year for that first deadline for submission, et cetera. So I think there's more to come in the weeks ahead from. But certainly, open to questions of us as well.
I think I would say, maybe question, such as the retreat about families or youth who may decline after services and participate. My understanding is that it would be, I think, our responsibility to determine which programs on an ongoing basis meet QRT requirements. And the way I'm thinking about this, and the way we've been talking about this, is probably similar to how historically insured compliance with level licensing regulations. For example, there's a licensing regulation that says that, there's a licensing regulation that says, you have to create a service plan for youth every 3 months, and when we come up to a site visit, we're looking through files to see if there's a service plan every 3 months in the use file. I think similarly with aftercare, for example, if a family is declining aftercare services, there should be some method of documentation that you undergo to note that you've offered services and families decline, you document that in a file in some way so we could then verify when you come out to do site visits. That would be my how that would work.
So we need that though, for liability sake, we need that to be clearly stated in the rules and in the contract, because what I'm worried about the ambiguity in the generalized statement of 6 months aftercare, you can clearly, at least clearly identify what that means, and who's responsible for it in a greater sense. It doesn't be, hey, provide a plan, they check in weekly or monthly, this is what's happening, they're doing it, they're not doing it. Is that, or is it, we're supposed to be meeting with them, a therapist on phone or in person? Are we supposed to be, what if we conflict with the program? We send the kid home and their service is being provided by a third party program, and they're not providing the service that we or they're not following through. Then what? I mean, they're not down to QRTPs, who's responsible to that? That also really needs to be spelled out. And for the rate, because if we are going to be reimbursed for this, then it's going to be different, like you said, for each kid. And if it involves a lot of effort on our part to make sure things happen, that's hours of work that we need to reimburse for, because we don't, as big as we are, we have one service, we have the whole program. And so, the effort they're going to have to do, we have our therapist, or we have others, but not this. That's really important to be this.
Absolutely. One of these clarify means there's 2 different QRTPs sort of have different conclusions about what aftercare the youth needs. Remember, this is family based, so it won't be under RTP, but it may be clinicians that designated agency, for example, some of the agencies are in a family setting. But absolutely with you, there are not things that we're also on us when we build all of this. I think it could be all of those smart people from different agencies to be able to say, getting better ideas about what they need and sort of split about what these needs are. Totally understand that. I totally agree with that. And when you talk about we need to hire somebody to do this, that's something that many programs immediately came to the conclusion of in terms of they're required to provide 6 months of aftercare for our program. We don't know their full-time employees to do that. So that would be part of what we're asking you to estimate in terms of how much it would cost to do this. It would require additional staff, and that would be part of the cost that we'd like to know about. When for 6 months of aftercare, there are many programs that do come both on their program in less than 6 months. There are programs that are there for 30 days, 60 days, or 90 days, and so they're constantly turning to youth at the 60 or 90 day mark after discharge, and then they have to provide 6 months of aftercare. You're going to be very quickly building a stable of youth who are needing 6 months of aftercare, and they're only in a program for a month or 2. So after a period of time, you might be providing more aftercare than the actual number of youth in the program. Which is also something to recognize. So yeah, these are all things, and I think we need clarity on that.
Thank you all. Just for what it's worth, when I read families first and aftercare criteria when first came out, my initial interpretation was that the integrity behind that criteria was about ensuring transition planning. A lot more than sort of quote unquote aftercare, because I think we all know that 6 months is not necessarily the criteria you're going to need to perhaps be stable and seen, especially a family placement. So I think this really was trying to break down some of the variables that exist. And I'll just like a perfect example, we worked with Emily last year trying to bring her out of the mortgage residential structure program, and PNMI barriers alone made it difficult for her to stay connected to her clinician. Made it difficult for her, she was going from 3 years residential to all this in foster care, and a huge issue. It was a huge challenge for her. There was a ton of anxiety around that, and just the barriers alone made it difficult for her to maintain any sort of connections with the program that she had for 3 years and have them deep-rooted both clinical and personal relationships. So maybe we can do like a transition to like community provider because of the barriers of the system. So when I think about like integrity of families first, I think that's what we're talking about. That's really what we should be aiming for. Is what is the best way to think about pinching these kids, to a place where connection can still go out. Because as you all know, from a clinical standpoint on this call, the fact that you just open themselves up and do connect us and our staff and program itself is kind of a miracle. And so to just kind of think that we can calendar move them from one place to another with start date and end date is I think disrespectful to the work they do with all of us. So that's the way we're thinking about it. Either way, that's the way we always thought about transitioning kids is what we can do and create so that the next stop for them is going to be made a little bit easier by the folks releasing them or helping them move. So just for it's worth. Anyway, Shelly, we're going to say something.
Right? So like you're saying that if our clinicians doing really strong case management before we discharge and really coordinating a good plan of care for them to discharge into. To me, that looks like then our clinicians that we have to do more check-ins, right, to make sure that that's being implemented. But as you've noted, sometimes, as you've noted, we're not really permitted to do that because that's one of the barriers of the PNMI rules that our clinicians can't stay involved after work. That would be something to overcome. Or is it really more about needing to then hire an additional clinician to really implement those 6 months of aftercare services that they might not otherwise be able to access and get within their communities? And those are like 2 very different things. And so I just want to raise that in terms of, so we're asking plan for this, but I feel like back to our rules that may need to be looked at. We need to know whether or not that barrier is going to be able to be lifted so that we can access our current clinician expertise that we have to potentially help support those aftercare services. And the answer is no. Then that means we're really looking at having to hire somebody different or contract out as people really do, somebody different to help support us in that aftercare planning. So I feel like there's just a lot of questions today that need further direction and answers before we can really put together a proposal that we're able to do about these forms that we're presenting in front of me. So just
all right, let's see. Any other questions, comments, thoughts while we have our great crew here? No. So Jamie and team, are you able to send me that slideshow that you provided with the link in it, just so I can show you that membership that isn't present today and those are? Is that something you send me?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. And I'll follow up with you and your team, and I will copy those members of our little resetting committee. And to recap, that is Showing Goodness, Beth Folden, Gary Hathaway, David Foster, Jen White, and Lori Baker. So if there's any board members that I've not mentioned on that list and you'd like to be part of that, send me an email or text or a carrier pigeon, and I'll make sure that as you see that team, I'm trying to meeting with them. Okay, excellent. Well, thank you for your time, 20 minutes, and those updates. We appreciate you and you do, and we can. You're welcome. So I will just, I know we have some finance stuff meeting with us. You're certainly welcome to hang out and listen to our friendly neighborhood RLS argument, talk about the staff and Melanie and her crew. Although it may not be something that you deem to be in the best interest of your time. So if you feel the need to vacate our Zoom meeting, it was nice to meet you all and see you all, and I look forward to potentially collaborating together.
Thank you.
All right, excellent. All right, so Chris, Ashton, Beth, RLSI related items.
we don't have anything today formally planned to present, but what I would want to say is, as we've been talking about, the level of ambiguity still out there, is to invite all of you, all the folks we've been meeting with in the QRTP readiness meetings up until this point in time, as these questions continue to emerge, or each of these things, please email them to us at our LSI. We'll continue to push those up through the system to try to get the questions that are still out there.
All right. Was there any question from the membership for LSI that is either field first related or otherwise?
I'm just wondering, I was last the notes, I'm starting with exit. Are there any structural changes in your unit?
What was the exit, etc.?
Yes.
And
Okay. We're currently in the process of hiring for a 10th position. We've got interviews scheduled, and there's a hiring committee for that. So once there's a person hired in that position, I'm sure there'll be an announcement. Very live, so we'll be able to that, actually.
Okay, Chris and Lauren, I would assume, any programs that are expecting annual visitations, renewals, things like that this fall, that's still on track.
Yes, thanks. That's a good point. We yesterday, in terms of getting back on track, we're going out and doing medicine visits. We put people on hold for the duration of COVID, and it looks like we're going to be able to get back on track. I think the way we're moving forward with that, staff programs expired, but there's still people licensing their applications into us on time. We're going to be starting the programs that appear closest to being QRTP ready, and we're also jumping into programs that are about to expire but haven't expired yet, so there's no lapse in there overall for licensure. And then we're going to be back on programs that have expired during COVID but are now still continuing to because of the application being on time. So there's a backlog that we'll have to get away. So we start to map out December and October visits to some programs. We're using those programs today or tomorrow in the coming days, and then from there we can go back up. Okay. We're starting with the programs and then doing the shelters agencies and the shelters.
Okay. That makes sense. Let's see, any questions for anyone from LSI? Going once, going twice. Okay, Melanie D'Amico and Special Services.
I don't have things a day of, so if you have questions, that'd be great. Otherwise, okay.
Okay, thanks, Mel. Anybody got anything for Mel? No, excellent. Okay. All right, last but not least, Option from Jane. Any breaking news or updates from the Department of Health?
I don't think so. I wasn't here in August, so I assume that everyone knows that we have a new commissioner in my house and a new deputy commissioner house. So, so all the things are new leadership. Very exciting. But I don't have anything to say.
Yeah.
All right. I think so.
That's good. All right. Well, let's see. If there's any further announcements or messages or questions for our state partners, and we will pause momentarily for them to exit left. And appreciate your time this morning. B-Corps members, why don't we take a 5-minute bio to refill your water bottles, coffee, or grab a muffin, whatever you need to do. Walk the dog. It doesn't matter to me. 5 minutes, and then we'll begin and wrap up the membership portion of our program today, and go from there. All right.
Everybody,
excellent. All right.
All right. Bye, folks.